Hello, and this is Jet Black Bebop for Genesis Device. This is the basic occlusion block tutorial, just going over some basic information on how to use the occlusion blocks to up your performance in your maps. As you can see here, we have many different types of occlusion blocks of all different sizes to use to basically make things disappear. When you use an occlusion block and it completely covers an object, or if there's an object that the view of is completely blocked by an occlusion block, that object will not be drawn, and this includes terrain and any buildings or brushes. As you can see here, we've got the big block. We got one around a tree and another tree behind it. Now, both of them are visible. The reason this is a common mistake. The occlusion blocks must be sunk down into the ground. Once an angle is reached where you can see any part of an object, it'll be drawn. So a tree usually has a trunk that goes into the ground a ways, so if we take our occlusion block and sink it down, you'll find that things disappear a little bit better. Alright, there we go, sink it down like that. And let's jump back into the editor and run around here. Okay, so you can see the tree behind is completely blocked. Now this one still is showing a little bit, but that's because the trunk or a branch might be sticking out of it. One thing to be careful of is, especially big objects like trees, are very difficult to block if you want to select them like that, because there are invisible parts of each model that you can't see, like let's say the undersides of platforms that have collision and stick out further than you might think they do. So if you think you have something completely covered, it may not be covered. So like I said, big objects can be very difficult to deal with. Here we've got a bunch of buildings that I've set occlusion blocks around in different ways. Now if we jump down, you'll see some of them disappear and some of them don't. The reason being, of course, is that some of them are completely covered and some aren't. The one on the right here, I have the edge of the roof showing. There you go. The little one back there just appeared. You can see it's barely peeking out from behind this occlusion block, but once any edge of something shows, it'll appear. This one, we have the roof edge sticking out of the occlusion block. So it appears as soon as you basically have that little edge in sight. But once you go past the corner of the occlusion block, it completely blocks it. Now once you enter an occlusion block, of course the object in it will appear, and anything outside of the occlusion block will be visible. Overlapping occlusion blocks is a great way to make things smoothly transition. That trick is best used in curved hallways or bent canyons. You can basically block everything in the background, but you overlap the occlusion blocks, so at one point you're in both occlusion blocks at the same time. Now let's look at a smaller use of an occlusion block. Let's say we want to block some items that are inside of a building. We have a lot of detail, let's say, in a map. Objects are piled up in buildings. So what I want to do is put a crate in this building to demonstrate this. So once you enter the building, everything appears, but when you're outside, it's not visible. We have an occlusion block that I've placed just over the front windows here. Alright, so you can see right now, actually the crates are visible. That is because the occlusion block is not low enough. Just like I said before, often there's parts of models that need to go into the terrain a little bit, so the occlusion block must be lowered so that it makes sure it covers the view in the terrain, including the view above ground. And we'll bring it forward a little, make sure it really covers that view. Now we'll jump back in and you'll see that the crates are invisible. Now if we run inside the building, you'll see they appear as soon as you enter. Trying to get this to work smoothly takes practice, so you need to do a lot of practice and running through your map and testing it as you're editing it, so that way you get it perfect. Now this building, it looks like it's covered with an occlusion block when we jump out of the gameplay mode, but the left side actually has a little edge and the bottom might be sticking out. So we lower the occlusion block, and as I jump in, yeah, see the bottom wasn't the part sticking out, it might have been, but the left side, you can see it must be sticking out just a hair. So we'll move the occlusion block over just a little bit, and that way it's completely covered now. can be quite a pain in the butt to work with occlusion blocks, but you can take a map with bad performance and really fix it up nice. Later on we'll do some advanced tutorials on special effects you can do with occlusion blocks. I hope this has been helpful for you, and from Genesis Devices, Jet Black, and happy map making.